Hey everyone, this is Akram Shaban. I'm here with my cousin Farsan Al Jarrah. So, what's going on with crypto, man? How you doing?
I'm good. It's good to see
Man,
you, man.
it's good to see you
I'm
too.
I'm I'm finally excited to see you take um that YouTube channel of yours and start putting content on there. It's about time people hear, the truth, and you have an obligation, Akram, to getting information out to the world because you know so much. And you and I and Vendel, we've had so many discussions about, just everything we talk about. I mean, it's incredible. So we're going to talk about some fun things tonight. And finally, it's being recorded. So I'm very excited.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I'm actually excited. I just got everything set up and was just like, okay, perfect. This is gonna be rapid fires, speak about what's really going on because a lot going on today as well. I've seen the news, man. It's nuts, but I'll keep it for later. But I have a lot of questions, man, about things about the Ice Nine. How is the Ice Nine going to play out? Because I this is also a reminder about Jim Rickards because sometimes people forget about it. It was a really long time ago. So I wanna remind everybody how is Ice Nine into your perspective? How is going to play out?
I think that's a very good question. Um, since I'm talking to you, Akram, I'm going to take it a lot slower and
Of course,
explain
yeah.
things because you know how I am, man. All right. So I'm also comfortable. As you can see, I got my fireplace going. I just drank some tea. And,
Oh,
anyways,
that's
so,
nice. I have
all
mine too.
right. Uh, an Ice Nine scenario. There are a
Yeah.
few ways to look at this, but basically, it refers to a situation where all credit markets in the global marketplace basically just freeze up, right? And that usually happens because of a debt bubble. And, I've talked about this a lot that there
Mm,
will be a debt bubble and it will burst eventually. And I think the country's heading in this direction. It's just with everything we see happening in the world, it's accelerating, right?
correct.
And I believe that a major financial crisis will eventually unfold. And this ties a lot to what we see happening in the banking system. And essentially, a liquidity crisis is where when nobody has money in the system anymore, central banks are tapped out, people are tapped out, businesses are tapped out, and they'll be unable to fix the problem because most of the time, central banks, since we live in a debt based system, central banks can um, print more money, issue new debt to sustain the debt that they already have. And it will basically be a point where the banks can't even fix it. And we've talked about this a lot. That's why I believe the IMF will get involved later on down the road, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So basically, the central banks can't fix the problem. And obviously, this was again created by design to destroy the current financial system and bring something new in. And this hasn't ever happened before, right? And that's what an ICE 9 scenario is basically when everything freezes in the market. So you can't buy anything online, you can't sell anything, your credit cards won't work. The only thing that will be king is cash. And this is why I always tell you to have some cash, right?
Right.
And of course, that ties us into the planned destruction of what we see happening in the banking system and the monetary system. And eventually, it's going to escalate. And that's why we probably see wars on the rise, part of a broader strategy. But it all ties in together. And I've mentioned before that, no significant change in the monetary system is like going to occur until we see like a geopolitical crisis unfold. So for a liquidity crisis to unfold, central banks would have to be so fucked up that they can't fix things, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's a worst case scenario, by the way. Might not even happen. It
Mm,
will eventually, but how long, I have no idea.
right. Right. Also, because like down the line, when it comes to central banks or currencies, do you think cash will still be a reason to keep or on hold, or is it going to be fading away? Like cash will be worthless later. What is your perspective on that?
Sure. My perspective, Habibi. Listen, well, cash, it's good to have now in the short term because if banks go down and things like that take place, right, we have a big problem.
Right.
So you want to have some cash on hand. But at the same time, cash is losing its purchasing power because banks keep printing money. I'm sorry, central banks, they keep printing money. So as they print money and issue new debt, it just again expands the debt bubble. But At the same time, it destroys your purchasing power. So basically, you end up with nothing, right?
Right.
And so holding cash is important, but it's also risky. You don't want to have too much in cash because it's losing purchasing power. So eventually, I think cash will fade away.
Mm,
Um, and that's the direction they want. They want everything digital, happy because they can watch everything you're doing, what you're spending, and they can control what you can spend and what you can do. So all ties in together. You know how it is.
of course, of course. Yeah,
Okay.
I need to clarify because some people still
Oh,
believe in cash than like just gold. Even gold, even believe in gold. They have a lot of trust on cash. Like, no, I would rather have cash instead of gold. It's
of
just
course.
eye-boggling, you know?
Of course.
So,
And you bought some gold too. So I'm very
oh yeah,
proud of
today.
you. Yeah. Alhamdulillah,
Yeah.
man.
I
It's
yeah,
important.
yeah, because my father came here and I told him, you need to spend at least get 2 ounces,
Yeah.
and from there we just accumulate, more ounces of
Mhm.
gold. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
beautiful.
always have a diversified portfolio because, again, going back to your first question, like what is a liquidity crisis? That's like an ICE 9 scenario. It again means that there isn't enough funds to buy, sell, and trade, right?
Mm,
Leading to a situation basically where people are tapped out. So you want to have liquid assets too, like gold, but also in a liquidity crisis, cash is liquid too. You see what I mean? So it's important to have a diversified portfolio. Very
mm,
simple, because then also resources are going to be scarce in a situation like that, which means even more liquid is water, for instance,
right.
barterability, man. You want to have food, you want to have shit, that you could trade with if necessary, because who knows, right? This is a problem reaction solution scenario, and we know this. So just be diversified. Nobody talks about this. It's a critical aspect about what we see happening in the world today. And with expanding wars and the petrodollar converging in the direction of central banks, we're already heading in. Like,
Mm,
you don't even have to do the math. It's just
right.
this is all bullshit, and it's acting as another catalyst for the whole process of where this is going. So it might seem like another headline to most people, right? But it's
Mm,
of course significant because if dollars start to come back to the US, that's where you're going to see hyperinflation. So everything again returning back to the US reduces the purchasing power of every dollar already in existence. I can go
okay.
on and on.
Definitely. Well, it actually gets me to my next bullet point about precious metals
Mm,
and the supply, because I've seen a lot of supplies is vanishing, and reevaluation of gold as well and silver. So
yeah.
I also want you to touch on that as well.
Of course, man. Well, I mean, that's wealth preservation, right? You want to again have precious metals because if you look at what's happening in the world today with expanding debt, that means the dollar is losing purchasing power, and because of that, as a result, every country, governments, people, including you and I, we don't want dollars. Why the
Right.
hell do I want dollars? I'd rather have gold, right? If if
Exactly.
if that's how I'm thinking, and I'm an American citizen using an American dollar to buy, do goods and services, right? If that's what I'm thinking, what do you think governments are feeling?
Exactly.
It's a
Yeah.
very simple question. And, even it ties us into like the whole Bitcoin maximalist shit, man. It's
Oh,
crazy, dude. So, it's like people don't understand money. They don't understand wealth preservation and they pretend that they do. So it's kind of funny.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it actually like pisses me off because I've seen a lot of maxis and anything at Bitcoin, Ethereum maxis. Like diversification is so important when it comes to investing.
Hmm.
Now, when somebody buys assets, whatever it's even real estate is everywhere. People invest real estate everywhere. They don't have to just buy one property and they stick on that property, and they don't want to buy any other properties. They expand. They buy different properties from different states. People
Hmm.
diversify their investments. I've diversified really hard, so I don't have like an XRP Maxi or something like that. So I always diversify with my investment. But a lot of people push that envelope like, oh, XRP is gonna go zero, Bitcoin's still gonna go up. Like, you know what I
Mm,
mean?
yeah.
So Maxi is, I don't know. It's kind of like
Well, two things. Number
yeah,
one, the real estate. Okay, I know Akram, you studied real estate and you're really good at it. You worked also with
yes,
Michael Gibson, right? That's good stuff. But
yes,
listen, there's a time and place for everything. I talked to you about this, right? And you know
mm,
this. What I'm trying to say is that look what's happening. There's so much uncertainty and volatility, and I mean, things are happening so fast. So what I recommend, and I've talked to you about this, and we both understand the same thing. So I hope you're in agreement with me on this. But basically, there is a bubble there's many bubbles. That's why black swan is a black swan. There's many black swans ready to happen. So
Right.
what I'm trying to say is that there's a time and place for everything. You want to wait for the right opportunity. Everything is overvalued. There's a bubble again. Once that bursts, what do you think is going to happen? Consolidation. So everything's going to significantly fall. And if you have money and you're at the right place at the right time in such a situation, you make profits and then you go diversify into real estate. But again, there's a time and place for everything. We're not there yet. We got to see some real suppression of these assets, man, because everything's overvalued. Any American wants to get a car right now. You're looking at $42,000 for something so cheap. And that's just because of the insurance, the maintenance, the supply chains again of the parts and things. So, like, big picture, man, big picture
Right.
stuff. Real estate is great, but when you have a lot of money, and there are people out there, I know Robert Kiyosaki. I've had him on the show. I know he makes money with real estate through debt, but the debt market is in big trouble right now. So
Yeah.
what the hell? You know what I mean? There's a time and place for that. Now to the next thing, the Bitcoin stuff. That's exciting. Okay. I meet a lot of people in the crypto space, and sometimes people ask me, what is a Bitcoin maximalist? And I just simply tell them, Bitcoin maximalists, by in being all transparent, are individuals who totally love Bitcoin and they're passionate about Bitcoin, right? But there's a problem now. There's the term Bitcoin maximalist has actually recently acquired a new connotation. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that today I say that Bitcoin maximalists are people who refer to not being well informed about other digital assets in the space. And these, again, are individuals who tend to follow the numbers on the screen of propped up artificial systems without a deep understanding of the deceptive nature behind the underlying infrastructure and, of course, its true objectives and motivations, right? Because
Right.
the national security was no doubt behind Bitcoin and its infrastructure. So the lack of understanding puts them at a very precarious position. And I'll tell you why, because they're always promoting it, right? Aggressively, very aggressively, driven again by significant promotional funding as well. It's basically one asshole buying it for the next. So for a higher price too. And if you're buying it at a higher price, somebody's selling it at a higher price too, right? So it's just a fool's gold theory, and that's what they say. Instead, when you can look at real um, particular assets that have rather institutional development, institutional adoption, right? It creates again the illusion of the next big thing with for instance, like people in the Bitcoin community. But this is the reality, man. I know I'm going on, but this is what I do. The institutions, remember, they control everything and they still will and continue to do so. This is why I believe Ripple is the answer. And I don't care if if XRP price goes low, right? Again, Ripple's technology offers a practical solution for the modernizing not just the financial system, but transactions, unlike Bitcoin, which faces scalability issues, energy consumption, and then there's a green agenda. Come on, man. You know what I mean? Like, how stupid are people, right?
Right.
I talked to Mark Moss once, and he was very rude. And basically, what I'm trying to say is that when you talk to Bitcoin maximalists like Mark Moss, right,
Mm.
they become very defensive and very insecure. And do you know why? Because they can't engage in proper debate and simply claim Bitcoin is like gold. That's what they say. But
Right.
it isn't. It's far from it, in fact. And this shows how naive people are and lack the understanding of the infrastructure again. And of course, its history, which is concerning because it reflects a significant portion of the global population. Idiots, right? And they're everywhere. And again, this ties us into the larger issue of people being caught in a cycle of self deception. And they're unable to distinguish basically fact from fiction. And I think this is the direction of where we're going, and it's exacerbated by all the convergences we see, even with artificial intelligence, right? Leading to a future where AI can potentially enslave the population without them even knowing. And digital money is only accelerating it. So it's crazy, man. These issues are deeply connected that I mentioned.
All right, Rasan. Yeah, we just had to do a part two. Now, next point was really, really, really important. Politics and the wars that's happening and how it's affecting the global economy and the acceleration of CBDCs. So I want
Hmm.
also your idea on how is it affecting the economy that we see today.
Good question. Politics is very important. It kind of ties us into the whole center of everything, right? It's the junction point. It really is. So, okay, the politics we see obviously is different. It's intriguing. I think after 2020, this is really when everything started. It certainly confirms that, with what we're seeing, it confirms that governments have been compromised, right? Whether it's by Israel or somebody else. And of course, this is a macro perspective. But I think just the way everything is playing out is very interesting as well, and ties into the politics, because it's supposed to be the U.S. and the U.S. deep state. That's what we talk a lot about in the political realm, and even the G7. The G7, countries, including the U.S., and it involves Eastern Europe and other corrupt governments and institutions around the world, and they all work together. Politics, remember, the politicians are influenced by the central banks and by the big institutions that get them in office, right? And this includes the World Economic Forum. I can talk about that safely these days. Before, I remember we would get banned for talking about it.
Oh yeah.
We're talking about Bill Gates. We're talking about the banking dynasties, right, and so forth, whatnot. The World Health Organization, and then of course you have on the other side of the political realm the BRICS nations, right, which are supposedly countries that don't play by the rules of this new world order, or at least they don't want to. Now, it's very confusing because, and we talk about this all the time, it's like, it's a situation where you open one door and then you find two more doors, right? And you keep going down this rabbit hole. So what I'm trying to say is eventually you bump into Nisara Jasara people. And those are people, in my opinion, to some degree, they have lost their minds, because they believe that a Trojan horse is coming in to save them, when in fact, I think that people are going to sell some sort of debt jubilee to the masses, and they're going to say, hey, well, we'll take care of your debt because of this global financial crisis only if you transact in the new system. And that ties us into the whole CBDC thing. But what is a central bank digital currency? People call it a central bank digital currency, but it's also known in the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, which is the bank of central banks, right, who run all the banks, that it's called a citizen behavioral disciplinary currency. And the thing is that all this infrastructure is being put into place all over the world, especially in countries that are against it, supposedly. You see what I'm saying? So the political realm ties into the center of this, because what do politicians do, right? Politicians are there to convince you have a choice, when I don't think you really do. You ask yourself what's going on. You see, it's very obvious at this point. Politicians are telling the people one thing, but they're doing something else entirely, whether it's Trump or Biden, in my opinion, based on the research. Politicians just answer to central banks, right? Those are the people who run them again. I don't think we have real representation. And I think it's one evil or the lesser evil, but I think it's towards the same common goal, right? And what other better way to sell this to the masses that expose the deep state, despite everything that they're talking about, is still accelerating and happening, right? So expose the deep state, show them what they're trying to do, and bring them down for the whole world to see. Next thing you know, you have your Messiah. You see what I'm talking about?
Mm.
So I'm just saying, you have to be careful for deceptions, because military and government, especially military industrial complex, man, they put trillions and trillions of dollars into infrastructure and weaponization of media, food, energy, sun. I mean, it's crazy, man. And again, these are all rabbit holes. So, going back to what you asked, and I know I went down a rabbit hole there. The political system is a bunch of bullshit. I don't think we have representation, despite what one side or the other says. And if they're going to take us to war in order to bring down this system, then that's what they're going to do, right? And the system I'm talking about is what we talk about a lot. And I don't talk about this on the show a lot because people don't want to hear it, especially our listeners. And many people, excuse me, man, they don't believe it.
Mm.
That they're building a two-tier system, and one of them is going to be closed for the masses, and that is the CBDC. And one of them is going to be backed by hard assets. And I think it'll be complemented by stable coins and so forth. And whole different topic, finance, right? Again, sorry to go off topic a little bit into the whole crypto stuff again,
No,
but
of course.
again, it ties into the political realm, right? Because there's this constant struggle between the banking system, it seems, and then the technologies that are coming out to supposedly decentralize the whole thing, and create a level playing field. So this is a very deep dive, but of course, for the XRP holders and those out there who invest in digital assets, obviously this is the infrastructure of the new system. So you can become incredibly wealthy in the process. And that's why I always talk about XRP, even with you, brother. Because again, what are they building? They are building a new cross-border settlement mechanism that is supposed to replace what? The dollar. What is the dollar used for? It's a world reserve settlement mechanism. You see what I'm talking about?
Mm,
So the devil's in the detail. And of course, people don't understand what the hell is going on. So I don't put too much faith in people figuring the shit out. Um, Again, back to your question. See, I keep going off topic.
no,
But the
it's okay.
politicians, I think to some degree, like if you look at what they do, not what they say, I think some of them are demonic. I think they're evil to the core and corrupt. All they give a shit about is control and power and getting elected. And they use terms to confuse you called bipartisanship when they try to pass bills like, oh, this was bipartisan. It was passed by Democrats and Republicans, supposedly when they meet in the middle, right? For what's good for the country. What the hell does that mean? The devil again in the detail with euphemisms. Governments love euphemisms because they can cover up the real meaning behind a word. Okay. So the term bipartisan, what does it mean? It means that both parties, whether one's corrupt or not, come together and they agree on something. That just confirms alone that both sides sell their voice and their opinion to who? The highest bidder, right? And those who influence their elections. Who are those? The central banks, the big institutions, the banking system, right? So, and corporations, right? Which are also like hedge funds these days and so forth, like Amazon, probably bigger than anybody, right?
Exactly.
Very deep pockets. They can influence an election if they want. So it's a very deep game. And I don't like getting into the whole political stuff, but I just understand the mechanics behind it. So in the
Uh,
end, the play between politics and finance again is going to lead us towards a new kind of system, and I think most people are not prepared for it. They don't understand anything. They don't have savings. They're buried in debt. They live in this really disgusting system where they have this necessity to buy things, right? This is the only lasting value in this country these days, is buying things. And I think even patriotism, they say, oh no, we're patriots, but that patriotism is sustaining a system that is debt based. So the Patriots need to rethink their concept of our banking system, because it's our banking system that makes America what America is, right? And then understand, of course, the broader implications of these changes is crucial because it can wipe out a lot of people. And I think that's what's coming. So you have to prepare yourself emotionally, spiritually, and of course, financially, man, for what's coming. Because, Akram, you know how informed I am on this shit 24/7 around, as you can
every
see,
day,
right?
every day.
Yeah, we talk about this on the phone all the time, man. It's crazy. So always tell your audience and your people to stay informed and stay vigilant. And of course, don't get swayed away by surface level bullshit and narratives, because the end game by all these headlines is to get us where they want us to go, right?
Mm,
When a headline comes out, it means it's already done, way, way in advance. It's just how they wake people up on a global scale. I know,
right.
deep dive, man, but you see what I'm saying? I got you.
No, of course, man. I got you too, man. No, of course. But I mean, from what I'm saying as well, most likely we're going to war for this.
Of course. Of course. Yeah, man. I mean, what do they do? And I love Gerald Salente because of this. He came on our show once, and it's because when all else fails, they take you to war. You know why? For many reasons. These guys are very smart, man. They can kill
Mm,
multiple birds with one stone. They're really smart that they can take us to war because things went bad for them, right? And they could lose the blame, basically. Say, point the finger at Russia, point the finger at China. So when we're sending ships there, it's like we're trying to get ourselves out of our own mess by blaming somebody else for it. And that can tie us into a Black Swan event in the cybersecurity arena. Yeah, who knows, man? I mean, it's a very deep game, like I said, and I don't give a shit. You know that. I
of
just tell
course.
people what to do to prepare.
Mm. Man, it's an honor to have you here, man. Really, it's first time, and it's we've been talking on the phone, but now it's better from our conversation on the phone should be for the audience as well, so the audience be informed for everything that's going on around us. But Versan, if you have anything to say, man, before we wrap it up.
Yeah, man. First of all, I mean, you did a great job, dude. I'm very proud of you. Like you said, get this on the internet. I think it would be great for people to hear. There are people out there who like to listen to things like this all day, and this is not filtered, right?
Mhm.
No edits. It's just a real discussion between two family members who understand what's happening. So I'm going to give you guys my last message. All right. And this is for you, Akram, of course, but my last message is always the same. I want people to take care of themselves, prepare emotionally, spiritually, financially, and even physically. I think a lot of changes are coming in the world. We're at a critical moment, not just in history, but a spiritual moment as well, where things can either go really well or really bad. And usually it gets bad before it gets better. And then looking at history, of course, it's clear what we're dealing with is a global control system. And I hope that's not true. But again, there are people out there who simply believe that somebody's coming to save you. And I don't think that's true, guys. They have been preparing for this for like 70 something years. Um, and I think they will likely introduce a new system soon that, of course, will be beneficial to people like you and I and others out there who've invested in the technologies. But be very careful for deceptions, man. There's a lot of lies and deceptions out there. So, whether
Yeah,
Trump wins again, it might appear positive, but it's just going to be another distraction. And the last thing I'll tell you, I'm sorry, man, is that this, that everyone keeps saying, oh, no, it's the Great Awakening, right? Okay. My first thing is like, you're just waking up. You're just waking up
that's
after
true.
all this shit that happened. You're just waking up. Like, come on. I've been awake since I was 16 years old. I understood things. My parents educated me at a young age. And what I'm trying to say is not brag. I'm not telling people that they're not educated. It's just that I want people to understand that as this great awakening is happening, and they're becoming more aware to what's been going on for a long time. Things I were talking about 10 years ago, privately, of course, with family and friends. No one believed me, but they're actually being deceived to some degree because this awakening is not perpetuated entirely by truth. They put some truth out there and they also deceive you as well. So making people believe that they're waking up when they really aren't, I think it's a very scary and deep and complex thought that, of course, most people will not understand it like you and I do. Even you and I don't know everything, Akram, but we poke holes in our logic to see what we can find out, right? And of course, you're my family, my cousin, so we're always having these discussions. But look at the nuances, right? And always try to see the big picture. Many people overlook the big picture, and that's why I talk macro, man, because it allows you to stay humble, to stay positive because you're way ahead. And always, when you look at things from a macro perspective, you start to understand that love is the answer. And that means in this time of uncertainty, it's crucial to focus on personal growth, become a better individual as an individual, right? Do everything you can to be a better person, help others along the way if you can, right? So the changes like that, they're going to be challenging, but the changes in you like that with a clear and compassionate heart, that's going to help you get through what's coming, right? So just be mindful of all the information you consume, be mindful of others, and fucking question everything, every narrative. And then together we can prepare for what the future holds. You see what I mean?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Versan. Really, it's an honor, man. Really, man. So a lot to talk about, but we'll leave it later. And yeah, man, it's good having you. All
Of
right,
course,
man.
man. Let
Habibi,
me know
take
when
care.
it's online. I'd love to watch it.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I'll definitely let you know.
I'll give you a thumbs up.
Habibi. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll
I'll
see
talk to you
you.
later. Masalam.
Ma salama.